Hey, my beautiful mythical creatures. Ace here, he, she. We are doing Someone Like You by Sparkly Pesker. Pesker? I am so sorry if I'm butchering names. I feel so bad for that. Anywho, we are going on to chapter 6. Woo! So on with it. Wow, me. Chapter 6. Chapter 6. Katsuki Bakugo walked home one day, months after his confrontation with Deku. He wasn't paying attention to his surroundings like he normally would. A hero must have a good sense of his surroundings, after all. But that wasn't happening today. The words Deku yelled at him had been bouncing around his mind, and it was starting to interfere with his routine. A feeling inside his gut was telling him that he needed to listen to what the freak was saying. But why? It's not like what he said was true or anything. Or that he was scared of what he said being true. Of course not. Not Katsuki Bakugo. He wasn't scared of anything. He wasn't even scared when he was caught up by a villain made out of sludge and had to fight his way free. Thank goodness that was the villain that caught him, though. It made his job a lot easier. With a large amount of water being virtually to blast. With a large amount of water being vulnerable to the blast of heat, and the impurities being flammable. It may have taken a little bit, and having oh my goodness, words I cannot speak. Reversed. The word stands for given. Having received no help from the heroes on the scene, he got out on his own. And if he could beat a villain even the licensed heroes couldn't defeat, then of course he was destined for greatness, to be number one, to outshine even All Might. So no, he wasn't scared of what Deku had said. No, siree, not at all. But he was unnerved. Deku had been changing recently. It's not unusual for him to fidget during class, but those movements had become more defined and repetitive. Like he was actually trying to gain something from it. But it's not like Katsuki paid attention to him or anything. So he wouldn't actually know what the freak is doing. The other extras never noticed anything. Their awareness of their surrounding was abysmal. So yes, Something had changed, and he didn't know what to think about it. He also noticed in the changing room that Deku had gained some muscle and was more flexible during physical activities. He could actually keep up with some of the extras now, instead of falling behind. But everyone was pretending he wasn't there, just as they had been since Deku changed his survey, saying he was no longer going to try out for UA. And didn't that just annoy Katsuki to no end? For years, Deku had been going on and on about how he was going to be a hero, always following Katsuki around like a lost and unwanted dog. Then all of a sudden he changes, says he's not going to be a hero. But Katsuki saw the changes. Why would Deku suddenly start working out and gaining muscles if he wasn't going to be a hero? Flipping burgers didn't require any kind of muscle Deku was putting on. It didn't make sense. None of it made sense. Why was no one else seeing what he was seeing? He knew the reason why. And it was because they didn't want to have to reflect on what that meant for themselves. But Katsuki wasn't afraid. He knew exactly what it meant. It meant Deku was going to try to trick him. He said he wasn't going to be a hero, but he was going to show up at the entrance exam just to embarrass Katsuki, just to show him just how much better he is than Katsuki. But that was not going to happen. Katsuki would show him. When Deku showed up at the exam, Katsuki will kill him. That feeling in his gut came back, making him feel slightly nauseated. I am going crazy. Maybe he ate something that went bad? No, that couldn't be it. Katsuki makes his own meals. Simply for that reason. He always uses the freshest ingredients and prepares them in a way to extract the most nutrients from them. There's no way he was feeling sick from eating something bad. Then maybe this feeling did have something to do with what Deku said. No, not possible. Deku doesn't know what he's talking about. Heroes kill villains all the time. And they're never called murderers or anything like that. Katsuki arrived at his home, absent-mindedly going through the motions of his after-school routine. He took off his shoes at the door, climbed the stairs to the second floor of his home, and entered his bedroom. There he completed his homework and did a few reps of hand and wrist strengthening exercises. His quirk put a lot of pressure on his wrists, so he needed to make sure those muscles stayed strong enough to take the pressure. After that, he took a shower and went back downstairs. He looked at the clock. It wasn't quite time to start cooking dinner yet. His parents had a meeting tonight, so they'd be home a little later. He could afford watching a bit of TV before he started cooking. Katsuki sat on the couch in front of his family's flat-screen TV. He turned it on and began flipping through the channels. He stopped on a channel that was playing an old All Might cartoon he hadn't seen in years. He remembered that when he was a kid, watching this cartoon was a guilty pleasure of his. He never allowed anyone to find out he watched cartoons. That was something kids did, and he wasn't a kid. He was going to be the next number one hero. He didn't have time to waste on constantly watching TV like many of his classmates. He bet that was what Deku did. Katsuki wasn't surprised Deku was able to stay as skinny as he did with that type of habit. His other classmates were a little softer looking than Deku had nearly looked like a stick. As the cartoon played, Katsuki became more relaxed. He smiled in victory as All Might defeated one bad guy after another. Then he began to battle that episode's mastermind. All Might was on one side of a road, while the villain was on the other. They had just separated after coming to blows. It was around this time in the episode where the mastermind started the monologue, and All Might said something to teach the viewers something educational. But Katsuki never listened to that part of the show. Once All Might defeated the villain, Katsuki would laugh and cheer at the hero's victory, missing the lesson altogether. It was the climax of the episode. All Might was about to unleash one of his long-range attacks. A civilian, eyes on the phone held in their hand, walked around the corner of a building, straight into the ongoing battle. Two sets of eyes turned to look at the unaware bypasser. They lunged. The villain snagged the civilian first. The villain screamed, startled. Mwahahaha. Laughed the villain. What now, All Might? You can't attack me while I have a hostage. The villain smirked in apparent victory. Now choose. Either they die, or you die. Katsuki froze at the villain's words. Deku's words echoed in his head. You would purposefully stalk and murder a civilian? Usually, whether he was watching the cartoon or not. He had no problem imagining himself in All Might's shoes, but right now, all he could see was his face on the villain's body. Katsuki lunged for the remote he had thrown across the sofa and shut off the TV. He didn't want to watch that. It wasn't hard to imagine how it ended anyways. Katsuki looked at the clock and figured it was time to start cooking. He was sure his parents would be home soon, and if they weren't, well, they should have been home sooner if they wanted a warm meal. Katsuki had finished tossing some vegetables and light sauces in a wok when his parents walked in through the front door. They removed their shoes and met him in the dining room, where he had portioned out the food onto their plates. Thanks, brat, His mother, Mitsuki, said while sitting down and starting to eat. His father, Masaru, echoed Mitsuki's statement. Katsuki said nothing in response. He sat down and began eating. Mitsuki and Masaru looked at each other. Katsuki was acting weird. He always had some sort of comeback when Mitsuki called him a brat, usually by calling her a hag. It was their thing. As they were about to finish their meal, Mitsuki finally spoke up. "What's with the attitude, brat?" "What fucking attitude, hag?" Katsuki yelled. "Hey, don't yell at your mother. She's just concerned. You're not acting like yourself." Masaru replied. Katsuki growled at his parents, finished eating, put his dishes in the sink, then left for his room. He cooked. They could fucking clean. As he ascended the stairs, he heard his mother sigh. What's his problem? He's a teenager, Mitsuki. You have to give him some space. He'll come to us when he's ready. And that's the end of Chapter 6. Chapter 7 will be up next. And I'm going to read you the first little bit of Chapter 7. Just so you guys know what's up next. Izuku's last day of Aldera Middle School was just a week away. He knew he needed to start looking for high school options if he was going to be able to continue his education. That's the end. And yeah, that's going to be the end of this chapter. Sure, let's call this a chapter today. I mean, every ending has a beginning. Wow. Until next time, my beautiful mystical creatures, peace out. Stay hydrated and eat donuts.